All right, so here we go. We're gonna do action smears, virtual cameras, blurs, glows, exporting high resolution out of Harmony into Premiere, and then exporting high resolution out of Premiere. So you can see here I've got a scene with a couple of frogs, and if I put it into render view, some of these things have blurs, right? So if I want to, oops, when I go to full screen, let's stop sharing. Okay. So you can see here, this is blurred, this is blurred, this is blurred, and I have the area of interest clear. And if I zoom into about 100%, this is what it's going to look like in a full render. If I zoom in too much, right, I'm in bitmap mode because I'm in render view, and I'm at 630%, which doesn't make any sense, right? Why does this look so horrible? Well, it's because I'm looking through my virtual camera. So if I go back to my drawing mode, you can see that we're clear again, right? So camera view, it only looks good at 100%, right? Which makes sense. So if I zoomed in the camera to this face, it would be high resolution and it would be clear at 100%, no matter where I move it in space, right? So let's go back. And to prove that point, I could easily take this camera, and to control the camera, I need a top and a side, right? See how I'm adding them right here with the plus? So I add a top and a side, and with the camera P layer, right, this is the peg. I can add a parent peg to my camera layer down here. And that's the layer that I move. So I'm moving it on render view, which is wrong. So I want to see it move in real time. So to prove my point, I could zoom in on like this frog's eyes, for example. And then when I go to render view, it's clear, right? Here it is at 100%. And just a bit ago, we saw it was very pixelated, right? So move it back out. I can see the edges of my camera here. I can start lining things up exactly how I want them. Side view, top view, right? And so now when I come in and go to render view, I've got my whole scene. And here it is at 100%. So this is what it'll look like. If I hit play, I've got, these signs moving very slowly. I've got somewhere in here some cameramen. Yeah, right here. They're moving slowly, right? And they're blurred. So in order to blur anything, so for example, these cameras, right? This layer here. All I have to do is select a layer and insert any type of effect that I want, right? So we've got this This is different. This is the new harmony. So if I right click, insert, where did they move the, yours is like this. It's insert effect. Huh. Let me reopen it in the other version. Okay. So let's see. I think that this is your version. So if I go to my camera frogs again, and if I right click on a layer and go to insert, you have this effects right here, right? And you can add a blur, you can add glow. And those are the two that I think are the most used and valuable. So for example, this camera here, all right, let's adjust it. So when it has a blur, and I can delete that blur, right? Delete that blur. So this camera, if I want to right click on it, insert effect blur, I can open up the blur and make it, you know, like power of 4. And I can't see anything unless I look through the render view, right? Now I can see how blurry it is. Okay, maybe it's 2, maybe it's 1. That seems to make the most sense, right? Because we're looking here. This is our area of focus. Now, if I wanted it to glow for some reason, like say this applause sign, let's find that. Is it text? Background. Curtain, text. Curtain, curtain. So it's got to be above that. Is it this? Oh, here it is. So this applause sign, it could use a blur and a glow, right? So let's do that. Right click, insert effects, blur. And then I'll click on the text again, right click, insert effects, glow. Now, if we go to our render view, the glow turns it white, and we can fix that. So if we change this to 1, and then if we go to the glow, and we right click this glow layer, we can go to the layer properties, and change its source color, right, back to what it was. Why? I don't know why it does that. It's not a good idea. So I can turn up the intensity, right? I can turn down the radius of the glow. Here's the radius of the blur. I can put it at maybe like a 0.5. And that looks a little better. But what would even be better than that is probably duplicating this text layer. And having the one on top, oops. Yeah, having the one on top not be blurred, right? That looks to be so then the one below it, I could really make it intense and not. Yeah, there we go. Turn it up, turn it up. So now it's glowing out of the bottom layer, right? This is the bottom, and then the top one is unaffected. So that looks better to me. Okay. No, it looks almost like a neon sign. So we've got blurs, we've got glows. Right. The two most used effects I've found. Now, what is a smear, right, or an action smear? Well, let's say that I want to move this frog's hand really quickly. So let's go back into drawing view. We'll make a new layer, and we'll call it frog hand. So if I come in here, and I want to move this arm, from point A to point B, right? What I'm going to do is draw a couple of starting and ending points, right? So the starting point would be here with the frog hand. And the ending point is, let's say, at frame 10. Okay. And it ends up sort of, out here. And the hand is, expressive. Okay. So how do we get from, point A to point B? I can come in here and delete these. And draw a midpoint between the two. And say, okay, the midpoint is probably sort of down here. It's going to swipe up. And it's called, an action smear. Okay. So then between here and here, we would have. Okay. So they're all, about equal length. And if we hit play, okay. So what I want to do is start to create like these action lines. And then when I get to this moment here, sort of if any of you have noticed, you've wanted to copy and paste something and not affect the previous drawings, the best way to do it is with your black selection tool. So what I can do is I can select all of this and I can paste it here, but now I get to go back in and draw on this other one and not affect the last one. So I don't know if any of you have had that problem before and you felt like you couldn't, for example, draw on that one and then have an unaffected, right? But the smear is for moving something quickly, and that's not quick enough. So what we could do is we could start to shorten the smear. Now you can see it's working pretty good, and it's getting from point A to point B as quick as you can. So most animators are not going to want to go from point A to point B in one step, one intermediate step, which is basically this. But with the smear, you can. You can get there, and the point is to get there as quick as possible. Now, I could come in here and I could, color the smear as well. So if I were to, make it like a transparent white, for example. That could work. Come over here to the smear. Like a web. So now when I go through, I have this transparent sort of swoosh happening. So let's pretend that this is perfectly fine and normal. What I'm going to do is export this scene, right, as a movie. Hide this. And you can see these pop-up windows, right? Anybody going to confirm that you can see this pop-up window?
I can see it.
You see it? Okay, so when I export it, I have to choose, how many frames. And make sure it's 1920 by 1080. So under my options, I choose to go Apple ProRes 4444 because that's the highest resolution. And I always have an alpha channel. So that means if I drew anything with a blank background, like a black background, I I could put it into Premiere and its background would be completely transparent. So this is the highest resolution, okay? All right, so let's go to Premiere. Going to Premiere. Oh, I don't have Premiere on this computer. Wouldn't you know it? I'll separate them. All right, let me stop the recording. All right, so let's jump into Premiere Pro and do some basic video editing. I'm going to import my files, right? And when I do that, I've got windows here, windows here. Yours will look more like this. This is sort of the default, right? I changed mine. And when you import your files, right, you've got media browser, here's your project. This is all of your imports. You just drop them into the timeline. And it turns out that, mine is vertical, but that's just what I've been doing. That's just the format I'm working in right now. So yours will be horizontal right here. And anytime you select a video, this pops up, right? So you've got audio source, effect. And this is how you start to make effects to what you're looking at here, right? So you do usually want to have your effect controls tab. So you can see all of the, if you want to change position, right, or scale, which you never do, but you could. Now, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense because I don't have many videos in here. So let's pretend these are all different scenes. Right? And what I can do is start moving them around. And let's say I want to transition from this scene to this scene, right? What I would do typically is put one on top of the other, right? See how I'm overlapping? And I can expand the scene enough to where I see the rubber band. And with my pen tool, I can just kind of snap down and do a very controlled fade. Right? I'm fading from one to the next. Right?
Sheer Berber? I thought the answer was in the collective.
And I can do the same thing with audio, right? If I make it big enough, I see the rubber band. Oops, I go down, and here's the other audio. So this one fades in, and this one fades out.
Berber? Nice. In the collective. Our group needs supersede territorial pissing.
And I can control that. Like, there's a reason I'm not doing these canned transitions that Premiere allows you to do. You can do like drop effects, like fade in, fade out, crossfade, all these things. But this is, you're doing it by hand, and you can adjust it perfectly.
Ray, short, right? Sheer Berber? Nice. In the collective. Our group needs supersede.
And I want it to fade out faster. Right?
Berber? Nice. Was in the collective. Our group needs.
Perfect, right? Look at that. So I just successfully did crossfade or fade out into a new scene. We did it with the video and the audio itself. And this is where I would start to import all of my royalty-free audio. And, you know, I'd have like birds chirping, wind, doors shutting, people's, you know, footsteps, and just start layering more and more audio, right? And you can add audio layers and add video layers if there aren't enough. You shouldn't need to add video layers. There are already 1, 2, 3, 4, you know. You can. So if you know, if you need to, but this should be plenty. Look, 3 video layers, 3 audio layers. Then the tools are basically, you know, here's your selection tool. Here's your razor to cut scenes. You can shorten them too. No, it's pretty obvious. But you're, you know, of course, you're affecting that entire scene. So I prefer to stack, so you don't lose any information. So, you know, anything under here, you don't see. Right? So that's pretty obvious, right? I'm not seeing this clip at all. It's hidden underneath the other. Yeah, so if I need to affect this here, I just click it once. And any, you know, any audio effects, video effects that I use are just going to start piling up at the bottom here, right? So video effects, I wouldn't use any of these too much. You could do a blur if you need, but then you're blurring the entire thing. You have no control like you do in Harmony to each layer. But audio effects, these are pretty useful. You've got delays, you've got modulation. Time and pitch is a good one. Pitch shifter. So let's say I want to change the pitch of his voice. I could come in here, right? Here's the highlighted audio that I'm affecting. I drug it in. I'll hit edit. And let's see what it sounds like.
Palace gray. Industrial grade.
Right, I'm changing his voice to be higher.
Right. Sorry. It's a high traffic.
But I always have it on high precision here, right? It's just automatically there now.
Industrial grade. Stone Palace gray.
Because if it's not, you hear it snapping. Now let's pretend everything's perfect, right? I did all of my edits, all of my fades. I've got supporting audio, and I'm ready to export. It's completely done. Just like most other programs, I go to File, Export, Media, and I'm going to choose the highest resolution so that, you know, my animation, even though it's going to export as a very big file, I can crush it down later in QuickTime, which is a trick. File, export. Oh, wait. Make sure nothing's selected here, because it's probably going to think I want to export this one clip. I want to make sure nothing's highlighted. File, export, media. All right, you guys can see this window confirmed for me?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. So within here, I get to, you know, export the whole thing, or say, okay, start here and end here, or whatever, you know, like just export this. So for me on a Mac, what I do for highest resolution, again, right, I go to QuickTime, and for PCs, you just got to figure it out, you know, and I can help you, you know, you want a screen share. But here, you know, ProRes 4444, that sounds the biggest, right? So it must be. So let's go with that. And then we can make sure everything looks good. We come down a little lower and you choose things like match source. Yeah, why not? Let's see what happens. 720, that's 1280. Okay. I can render at maximum depth. I can use maximum render quality. This is a picture of what it should look like. That looks, very high resolution. And if you queue it on a Mac, it goes to your, I just skipped that, who cares? It's ready to go, I'll export it. It's probably gonna be like a few gigs and that's too big, right? So then what I'll do is I'll open it in QuickTime. So let me go to QuickTime now. So you can see here I am, let's pretend this is a gigantic file. Can you see this file export as? You see these options? Yes. I've got, 4K, right? I don't want to go that direction. 1080p is probably the best for you guys. It'll reduce quite a bit, and then even if you went down to 720, you're really reducing, and you're running the risk of reducing it too much for archiving. But if you are in QuickTime, you have a file that's 2 gigs. You export it as 1080p. It'll push it down to like 200 megs or so, and that's perfect because you don't really lose any visual quality. What you did was you exported as big as you could out of Harmony, as big as you could and clear out of Premiere. The file's much too big for anything. Then in QuickTime, you use that as a tool to create the codec and the format. Now, if you're on a PC, that's another issue altogether. Okay. All right. Let me stop the recording.